in Singapore, it was a very healthy competition. You won't believe it, we would all sit together and try to research that the concept that we've been just taught, that how can you use it? In which industry can you use? If it's a fintech application, can we just use it in the finance field or in which particular other field? So, we would all come together. That competition was not there that, oh, I need to score more marks than you. I told them that outside their college, I had told them some concepts of behavioral economics like cognitive biases and all, and then I told them outside your college, it's filled with the cigarette butts. Like there is so much of litter, especially the cigarette butts. So I said now, all of you are going to be trying to apply a concept of this behavioral science, and within a week's time, when I come to the college, I should not see that cigarette butt. So they had brainstorming sessions. They came up with such wonderful ideas. The idea that we implemented was, they're like, let's do one thing. IPL, World Cup, all these matches were going on. So they put up 2 transparent dustbins.
Hi everyone, this is Vivek Srivastav. Welcome to my channel. And today we have for you a very special guest episode. We have Ishika Bihani with us. And Ishika is a fellow chartered certified accountant, and she has a master's degree in applied economics from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. She is also the founder and CEO of IKKA EdTech Inspire, which is revolutionizing how students learn finance, business, and economics. So, wow, that's very impressive. I'm sure we'll have a very fun and insightful podcast with you, Ishika. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Vivek sir, for calling me here. And a very profound introduction he's given about me. Thank you so much for that.
So tell me, Ishika, how did it all start? I guess you did your degrees in economics, and I think you were saying you also interned with a company. Was that in Singapore as well?
No, so see, my journey started, the professional journey started when I was doing my chartered accountancy from UK, and that required articleship and all. So then I did my articleship in some mid-sized companies and all. And let me tell all of you, in articleship as a chartered accountant, it's like you are treated as donkeys because you're going to be paid less and it's going to be treated like donkeys. So it's like, it was one of the learning phases where you could really learn a lot. So for peanuts, we would work for 12 hours, 14 hours a day. But that, gave us the strength and I think built and gave me the strength now to build a startup. So after my chartered accountancy, then I went to Singapore to do my master's in applied economics. I always had this thing that it has to be in the top 20 universities, otherwise I'm not spending and going and all. So when I went there, then we realized along with some professors there that, fintech, AI, blockchain, behavioral economics, all of this is so yet, amateur. And especially in India, it is very, very new. People have just heard the words about it. So at that point of time, the new education policy was getting revised in India. It was going to be implemented in India. So we decided that, let us make some value-added courses, which is going to help bridge the gap between what students are being taught in colleges as degrees and what skill is actually required in the industry. So currently also, if you see, there is more than unemployment. The problem is of unemployability. And that is more because of the skill gap. What I'm being taught in colleges and degrees is really not what is required right now.
Absolutely.
So that is where my journey started.
Yeah. Interesting. So tell me a little bit about this a new education bill or act that India has come up with. What does that entail? What
so the new
changes
education policy is just focusing more on credit courses. For example, if I'm doing an engineering degree or a BCom, BBA, any degree, so along with that degree, there have to be some additional courses that I should definitely do. For example, in some niche fields like maybe fintech, AI. So they are trying that, students along with the degrees are able to get hands-on experience and they will be ready for the industry. So, that was a correct time for me to start something.
That's interesting because for the longest time in US, and I did my degrees in the US, even though I did in engineering, we were required to do courses that were not engineering.
Correct.
And at that time, I didn't like it because I wanted to, focus and do more. Engineering will be better at that. But now that I look back on it, I'm actually very happy at those non-engineering courses I took.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it was actually good. So is that kind of what they're trying to achieve?
Absolutely.
Okay.
For example, if you look at a normal BCom degree or anything related to finance, now it's like finance, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is accounts.
Right.
That they will be accountants, right? They will be doing entries. But now with
Balance sheet.
fintech coming in, yes, absolutely, balance sheet. But now with fintech coming in, with AI coming in, it's like all your jobs are going to be replaced. I can have a robot
Right.
or a software passing the entries for me, so why do you need me?
Right.
So it is, that is when it's the correct time that, India is also trying to change. And that is why now it's like even blockchain and these kind of technologies are also being introduced into finance degree colleges. That's what it is.
So you did your internship. How did you decide that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Did you continue your corporate journey a little more, or did you decide, okay, I'm going to start my own thing?
So firstly, I feel entrepreneurship was in my genes because my parents are entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So they had started with an IT company, so I guess it was ingrained in my genes that entrepreneurship is the thing. And as I said, to continue with that, it's like in Singapore when I was, we developed these short-term courses, and it was a correct time to deliver it to India. It was a
Okay.
correct time to start at that point in India.
Ah.
So I had a really big choice that, should I take up a job in Singapore or should I come back and start with a startup? And that was a very, very big decision that I had to take because, once you've graduated, post-graduated, you want to enjoy life. So it is that you want to make some good amount of money first and you want to do a job and get every month your paycheck. But then that was not in my case. So, yeah.
No, that's great. I think you probably made the right decision because India is growing so much.
Absolutely.
Whereas while Singapore is obviously very impressive, but I think the growth period's over and they are kind of plateauing. Whereas India is just going to have that explosive growth that we saw with China a few
Correct.
decades ago.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I'm also really happy to be here for that reason. I have to say I'm not enjoying the lack of infrastructure and all that, but but I'm definitely, because I go to many events and particularly startup oriented events, and it's amazing the kind of startups and the number of startups and all the innovation going on. It's amazing. Tell me about the early days of IKKA. How did that go? Did you what's financially? How did you come up with the finances to do all of that and so on?
So, for an entrepreneur, the first thing was that where do we start from? Like, what is the exact product that you want to deliver? So, then we came up with two verticals. One vertical was the value added courses. So, we tie up with universities, colleges, we offer these courses. We have some tie ups with professors from international universities and all who also deliver these courses. Second vertical that we started was for the ACCA training. So these were the two verticals we started with. Now coming to the finance part, because I had worked earlier and that was the funding that I was just starting with, and initially it was just a one-man show. So I was the only one who was looking at it with a couple of professors from my Singapore university who were helping me with it. Otherwise, it was only I who was looking after it. And then it was, that you get some kind of a funding, you approach these investors and all, so they help you with the funding. So in that case, I did get lucky because of the timing. I'm sure you would have also heard about the first mover advantage.
Great.
Correct. So then because of that, I did get slightly lucky. And that is where I got my finance from, basically.
But I would have imagined that for an education sort of thing, there'd be a lot of startup costs, right? You have to have a place like an institute, and you have to either buy it or rent that area, and then all the various infrastructure costs, laptops, whatever. So, how did you bear that yourself, or how did that happen?
So we did bear it ourselves. So it was more, we started with the rental part. Some part was still online, because COVID had just finished actually, so
Okay.
people were still skeptical in
Right.
coming offline. So it was a hybrid thing that people were looking at it.
Right.
So that again worked in my favor because I did not have to invest too much in a very big infrastructure where I had to cater to 200, 300 people. It could have been a smaller place. So that is how we did it.
Right. Start small.
Start small and then you're growing.
And
Right?
expand. Nice. So
Yes.
where, just on that note, how big is it now? Like how many students do you have now?
So if I see overall, I guess it would be at least around 350, 400 students that we have. Maybe just increasing now. So yeah.
Nice. Beautiful. How about staff? I personally, had a lot of staffing issues. And it ties into what we had spoken a little bit earlier before the podcast started, was that, the Indian system doesn't train the students to be very employable and very effective at their jobs. And that's what I ran into a lot also. Not just with college graduates, I was hiring 5 years, 10 years experienced people, and still I was running into a lot of competency issues. So I would imagine, you'd have to hire some amount of staff for all of this. How did you run into staffing issues and all of that?
I can really understand from where you come from because staffing is a really big issue, I feel. It's very big. You find good people, but then to retain them is a problem.
Yes.
And finding good people is really difficult. So in my case, I feel it was even more difficult for a simple reason that I wanted to break the stereotype way of teaching. Now, if you look at, I'm just shifting a little bit from the main topic to give you about this. If I talk about, say, for example, the Indian education system, it's completely based on, you look at the examination, it's based on memory. So if I remember the definition, I get marks. If I remember that verse from the textbook, I'm getting marks.
Yes.
But when I went to study at Singapore, it wasn't like that. We were taught the concept and then we were just told that, okay, this is the application. So an environment was created where you had to basically, apply the concept, research about it, innovate about it.
Yes.
So I wanted to create that environment here. Now, to create that environment, your teaching methods have to change. It cannot be the spoon feeding and the typical ways that you have been taught in India. So now to find such a staff member was very difficult. So then I had to start doing staff training. But now everyone has got a unique way. So there were a lot of tips in that. So staffing has been a really big issue. Currently, we are blessed with good faculties. However, it's just a very big issue.
Yes. And what you said earlier, where retaining is a challenging thing, because in my case also, I'm a startup, right? So they just see me as a stepping stone. We'll work some time here, then we'll go to a bigger company, then the Wipro, Infosys, Tata, and America, or something like that. That's kind of their path, and this is just a temporary stop for them. So.
Correct.
So
just to add more than a temporary stop here, it is that okay, we will just do it part-time. We'll just teach along with the main job. So then what happens is how many hours, what is the justification to the work that you're actually able to do?
Right. So what we did was we first a rigorous interview process, which includes like an exam kind of thing almost, where we ask them to write code and give them a problem and write the code for that. And then after that also, when we do hire them, then they're on probation for a certain period of time, and we evaluate them very carefully and all that. That has to be done. Otherwise, what we found was, if you're lax during that whole process, then you'll have trouble.
Absolutely. So we follow a similar process. One is an interview process. So in the interview process, it is firstly the informal manner, then it will be a written manner, and then we have a demo lecture. So because it's you will be associated with students, so we do tell the faculty that you will have to give a demo lecture to the students. And once she or he is hired, after every course, it's completely dependent on the feedback of the students also. So I feel in today's world, feedback is everything. So, it was something that, yes, feedback.
I'm remembering my days where feedback of our teachers was not even concept. In fact, the teachers could tell lies about us and get us into trouble also, and they'd get away with it.
So it is,
That
and
was my life.
absolutely. So I felt that is the change that is required. In fact, when I was studying in Singapore, after every trimester, we had to give a feedback.
Right. I wonder, this is kind of an interesting question. How did we fall into this? How did India fall into this whole memorize, what I like to describe it as memorize vomit, memorize vomit kind of thing where you just memorize and vomit it out into an exam and then that's your education. So how did we fall into that in the first place? Like, because I think when you look at America, right from the beginning, they were kind of not that way and they were, creativity kind of based education where the kids are taught how to be creative and think outside the box. Do you have any theories on how we got into that in the first place?
Very good question.
Because if you look at an ancient thing, we had the Gurukul system and all that in the forest and whatnot during those days. So how did we lose that and get into this?
So I feel, in my opinion, it is we've fallen into that more because of the pressure that you need to get a job, you need to start earning by so and so age.
Like the competition.
The competition. And, like India is still was actually, you can say, where, the youngsters had to take a lot of responsibilities on themselves. So because of that pressure, I feel it has always been that you need to start earning and becoming an earning member in the family very soon. Now, how do you do that? It is by getting a job. For a job, what do I need? A degree. For a degree, I need grades. So I feel that backward thing has just maybe added to that.
That's true,
just
because it was my memory of my school days and all that was very competitive. Even in first standard, second standard, the sort of competition factor was very, very, very high. Which is not there so much in these other countries.
Absolutely.
How was it like in Singapore from a competition standpoint?
In Singapore, it was a very healthy competition. You won't believe it. We would all sit together and try to research that the concept that we've been just taught, that, how can you use it? In which industry can you use? If it's a fintech application, can we just use it in the finance field or in which particular other field? So, we would all come together. That competition was not there that, I need to score more marks than you.
Right.
I need to be the teacher's favorite. Nothing like that was there. Other teachers' pet. It was more that, no, we need to definitely, come and create something together.
Yes.
So that environment was there. So that killed the typical competition, I guess.
Right. Yeah, cool. So, tell me about the early days of IKKA. Where did you how did you get the word out to students and get them to join up and
So in the early days, I can tell you as an entrepreneur, it has been a very, very tough journey. I'm sure you know about it because you are now into a startup. So
yes.
It has been a very tough journey. So we started with social marketing, we started with contacts, we started approaching universities, we tried everything, just even sending cold emails. And then one day, if your luck prevails and you get something, and from that thing, then it's like you start growing by word of mouth.
Out of all those things you mentioned, which one clicked the most? You mentioned cold emails, social media marketing, friends, family, whatever. Which one was the most successful?
For me, it was social media and it was the connect.
Okay.
So there were a couple of contacts. So it was just for the initial one or two students or for the initial one or two contracts with the universities. After that, everything has been word of mouth.
Right.
So it's just like, to start, you need, I guess, a little bit of luck also, I will say, and the correct timing. And you will definitely need a little bit of social media marketing. But I feel for any entrepreneur, that strategy has to be there. You need to set a budget aside for the social media marketing, for maybe the cold emails part, for the connects, all of those things.
So out of the various social media channels, which one clicked the most for you? I'm guessing maybe Insta?
Yes, Instagram. So if you see, almost the Gen Z generation is hardly using Facebook, to be honest.
Yes.
So it's only Instagram, and Insta really played a good role in this.
Wonderful. You mentioned starting, maybe in other countries as well, or what's the future plan for IKKA? Are you going to have different centers everywhere? Or?
So my vision is actually to be able to create in the future, maybe I'm being a little bit too ambitious, but to create something like a college or a university where this environment is created, where people want to learn, not for marks, but it is more for the creativity, it is more for the understanding and the application part. So we've started with these two verticals. Our plan is that maybe in the coming 3 years, we should be able to start it in at least 6 cities in India. And in the coming 5 years, we are aiming for the UAE and the Singaporean region currently.
Nice. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I sure hope that all works out for you. Now, you had mentioned earlier a little bit about AI in the world of education as well as teaching, I guess, AI as well, right? Could you speak about that? Will AI kind of replace teachers maybe even at some point?
I think AI is possible to replace everything, like all the jobs. But wherever creativity is going to be required, wherever the human brain is going to be required, that will not be able to replace. So any routine job can be replaced. So if you're going to be teaching in the same stereotypical manner, where this is the content of the book and you just need to explain it and the student just need to mug it up, yes, I definitely can be replaced.
Yes.
But if you're going to be using innovative methods, you're going to be applying some fintech or behavioral economics side to the teaching and all, then definitely AI will not be able to replace you. But I must say it is changing the way Gen Z operates, the way the generations after that are going to be operating. It is really changing.
You know, in the previous podcast with the cyber law expert, one thing he mentioned was that something that's coming along the way is super AI, super intelligence AI will not just be doing what we can imagine beyond our imagination, and stuff. And so, based on that, I would imagine that even what you're saying, where creativity is required, possibly AI will be able to handle that in the future, not today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that should be interesting. But coming back to the other side of AI, do you teach courses in AI at IKKA?
We do tell them about AI, we do teach them about the AI machine learning part, we do teach them about blockchain. So we have short courses on all of these aspects. It depends. The depth of the course depends on whom are you offering it to. If you're offering it to a finance person who does not have background about AI, it will be something basic. But if you're offering it to a PG person, maybe that will be something in depth. So it's all being curated in that particular manner.
Okay.
But just to add to your previous point where you were talking about AI can take over and the super AI and all, it's actually people are talking about, if you've heard the seventh point of AI, that is the singularity point where AI will take over the world and it will be able to probably control humans and everyone.
Well, I don't know about that. It all depends what kind of, because at the end of the day, what is AI? It's lines of code.
Correct.
So if the code is written in such a way with safeguards in place, possibly that won't happen. But we'll see. Maybe AI will get smart enough to go in and hack itself and remove those code restrictions. But I don't know. But I think what's very important is the creators of AI put all those kind of restrictions in the code so that it cannot do that.
It cannot do that. Plus, it learns from the environment in which it is.
Right. So its ability to grow that part, and take over sort of should be can be code restricted possibly. I'm not that much of a code AI expert myself, but just from my knowledge from engineering, I would imagine that's so I personally am not too worried about that. That it'll take over, but what definitely will happen is the jobs are going to get taken off. That's for sure.
So I feel all the routine jobs, the typical routine jobs, already AI has started to take over.
No, but I think in a few years, even the non-routine jobs are going to be gone. It's going to be very few. Just probably the AI programmers will be the only ones.
Correct, maybe. Yeah.
So that should be interesting how society evolves.
Correct.
Because it'll have to.
But still, there will be room for innovators. There will be room for creativity. There will be room for thinking something different. There will be room for if you're doing something that involves interactions, that involves emotions. So these are the things that definitely AI will lack.
Cool. So tell me about Eklavya now, to change topic a little bit. How did you get into that? I would have thought you'd be quite busy with your startup. So you also do some consulting as well?
So Eklavya is the company. It's an IT company that was started by my parents
Okay.
almost 30 years ago. So if you've heard about the Indian Army projects, the Border Road Organization projects, or the Dental Council of India, they've done all these IT projects for these big companies, these government organizations as well as non-government organizations. So it was one of the things that was that when I started with my startup, I was, that pressure is always there from the family. Oh, you're doing something,
Right.
but bolte ghar ki cheez hai and you're not going to be doing it. It's not good. So then, in that manner, I started to get involved project-wise. So I was involved with a lot of projects, and I work there more as a business analyst or a system analyst, you can say.
Sure. I've done that role myself.
Correct. So, to be honest, though you're an engineer, but being an auditor, we are slightly better at analysis, I can say, because we know the processes, we know the audit checks. However, engineers are also good, but then it's like, yeah, we're slightly better, 1% better maybe.
Okay.
So
Okay, I'll accept that.
Okay. So that was one aspect to it. So to understand the processes and then to automate that is like my job role. So if you have a particular process running, like as simple as how does one get a promotion or how does one get a posting in a government organization. So there are so many laws, regulations, rules. So I need to understand them. I need to understand the grading aspect. And then it's like I'm creating a pseudo code and trying to put the audit checks. And then we are going ahead with the proper automation. So that's how I'm involved in Eklavya. And yes, as you told me that startup is going to be keeping me busy. Both the things really keep me very busy. So it's like there are days when I'm working sometimes for 12 to 14 hours. There have been days when Sundays also been working. But I feel as an entrepreneur, if you get the kick in life, then it's all good. So I get a kick when I'm on my toes. Right. Otherwise, it is
I agree because even though I face challenges, there's also a joy, of I'm creating something new and doing something and doing it my way. Back when I worked, even in top companies in the US, I was always frustrated with the corporate structure, the restrictions, the slowness with which they move, and the inability to make an impact. I'd see something, I'd be like, oh, this could be done so much better, but then there was, just because of the structure, I couldn't do anything about it. I just to sit there and let it happen. So I enjoy this, but then of course there's tremendous challenges in the startup world as well.
But entrepreneurship, I feel, is one of the reasons why I also wanted to be an entrepreneur was because you can be more creative.
Yes.
As you just mentioned that, you have to follow systems. Here you are creating systems.
Absolutely.
And you can remove the nitty-gritties of the previous systems that you feel have been a problem.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the really great parts about it.
Maybe that's why you also started with the startup.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.